8 years ago, our hero realized he possessed some truly special abilities. He was only 10 years old at the time, casually playing with his mysterious power inside his home, making items float right as his mother walked through the door. But instead of being proud, his mother starts screaming, demanding he stop whatever he is doing immediately. She then sits him down, asking if he wants to stay by her side forever, and Tran quickly nods yes, since he loves her and wants to stay together. She makes him swear never to use that power ever again from that moment on. She warns him never to show it to anyone, and Tran asks why he has to hide such a gift. She brings up the old legends about nobles and knights, and he remembers them well. See, anyone who can wield magic like him is called a wizard, whether they are a high noble or a knight. But there is a catch: nobles are seen as pure descendants of the divine. Those are the Freyans, who descended to save old humans long ago. On the flip side, knights are descendants of those nobles whose blood has been mixed with humans, which is why there is a massive difference even among wizards. She explains that the real reason he has to stay hidden is because he inherited his powers from his father, who was just a knight. She warns him that cruel nobles exist outside town who treat lowly knights like nothing more than their slaves. She begs him to keep his identity as a wizard a total secret forever. Fast forward 8 years, and Tran is still keeping that childhood promise to his mother. He has stuck to it perfectly because he has absolutely no desire to be recognized as a wizard. Honestly, he has no intention of leaving his mountain to visit the village below. Down in the village, 2 local kids are just messing around, playing a game of wizard versus monster until the town favorite, Grandpa Robus, walks over. One boy looks up and asks what it takes to actually become a real wizard. The old man sighs and tells him that wishing for it simply isn't enough. Robus explains that wizards are the peak of humanity, ruling over everyone from a higher realm. They are the lucky ones who inherited mysterious powers from their ancestors, usually the high-ranking nobles or knights. Which sadly means these 2 normal kids can never become wizards. Now, you and I might think that is blunt, but the old man tells it like it is. But then, he changes the subject, telling the old man about a monster sighting nearby. Robus nods, confirming that a man named Rob ran into the beast just last night. They say it is covered in pitch-black shadows, a massive leopard, easily as big as a whole house. Still, Robus tells everyone not to worry because the village chief has already headed to the city to request a wizard, and he will surely bring one back to kill the beast. Everyone feels a wave of relief, and one villager warns the kids to stay far away. They are strictly forbidden from entering the forest for their own safety until the threat is gone. I mean, for a regular human, killing a monster is pretty much impossible. That is exactly why they need a wizard. One of the villagers asks Robus if everyone in the area knows the danger, and the old man says yes. Then the man asks if that shepherd living on the hill, Tran, is aware of the monster. Meanwhile, Tran is just relaxing on the hill, using one of his sheep as a fluffy pillow. He stares up at the clear sky, wondering if you and I would find the scenery just as boring as he does. Tran lets out a heavy, disappointed sigh. He mutters that he will literally forget how to talk soon. Suddenly, Rabus appears, mocking him for napping before the sunset. Tran acts like the old man is not even there. "Move aside, you are blocking my son." Rabus is absolutely fuming. He asks if Tran is still bitter about the past. Apparently. You see, Robus tried to steal Tran's sheep inheritance after his mother passed. Tran makes it clear that he hasn't forgotten a single thing. "I am not generous enough to forgive a thief," he says. Besides that, he reminds Rabus they are not exactly on friendly speaking terms. He tells him to say his piece and then just get lost. That cold shoulder almost makes the old man snap right there. But Tran's glare stops him. Finally, Rabus mentions the new monster. He describes a beast, but Tran remains totally unimpressed. He is shocked Tran is not terrified since he is a target. He calls Tran insanely brave, though he can't fathom why. Anyway, the chief has already requested a wizard from the city. Be careful, he urges, pretending to actually care for once. Tran bites back. You are not worried about me, you are just worried about sheep. Rabbis is about to explode. Tran just tells him to beat it already. Your breath stinks, the kid says. The old man slinks away. Now you have to understand, monsters are beasts fueled by magic. What wizards are to humans, these beasts are to monsters. Tran is actually hyped to see a real wizard. But then again, can a rural village really get a top-tier wizard? He still wants to test their legendary strength. Suddenly, the smell of blood catches his nose. He follows it and finds the old man's remains. He is shredded like paper. Tran is surprised he died so fast. The warning guy died first. Tran stays completely emotionless while checking the messy corpse. This was not a regular animal. This was definitely the monster. Before he can even finish, the culprit steps out from the trees. It is huge, dark, and looks absolutely terrifying. See about monsters. They are way beyond normal human limits. The kid thinks they are doomed, but his dad disagrees. He tells the kid that a wizard will handle it. All right, you and I know a wizard doesn't just lose to some beast. One word is all they need. Facing the beast, Tran doesn't flinch. He stands perfectly calm, uttering a single, chilling command for it to just die. A massive wave slams the creature, throwing it back, but the beast stands its ground, unfazed. Tran is stunned. His opening move didn't do a thing. While he scrambles for another plan, the monster suddenly lunges straight for his throat. Tran shouts another command word, ordering it to stop, but the beast's claws barely miss him. He's shocked. 2 commands in, and this monster is still breathing down his neck. Before he can react, the creature spins around, eyes burning with pure rage. Tran leaps back, barely dodging the strike. It is time to stop playing around. He goes old school, channeling a shepherd as he whips out a sling. He loads a stone, hardening it with magic before launching it straight at the beast. As it flies, he barks another command, forcing the projectile to accelerate with insane speed. As the stone nears the beast, Tran gives the order, pierce through everything. A massive shockwave erupts, carrying enough force to tear right through the monster's giant body. But somehow, even that isn't enough to drop it. The beast charges at Tran. But it doesn't realize Tran's trick. That stone is already looping back like a deadly boomerang. It targets the skull. With sheer, insane power, the stone shears through the beast's head from behind before it can even touch him. Driven by that absolute, insane momentum from the hit, the beast collapses to the ground, stone dead. And through it all, Tran didn't even break a sweat. He tosses the carcass into the valley, annoyed that these villagers keep making his daily life so difficult. Next morning, Tran gets a rude awakening from a mob of furious village folk. They start hammering on his door without any respect, screaming for him to get out. Turns out they're blaming him for killing Robus. The lead guy grabs Tran's collar, screaming about how shameless the boy is. He claims Tran wounded Robus and threw him to the monsters like trash. Tran just sighs, calmly explaining that he sees what they're doing. They're framing him because their elder died alone, all while these young men were too terrified to even face the beast. Tran knows they're just choosing to set him up because it's the easiest way to shift the guilt off themselves. This infuriates the guy. He swings a punch at Tran's face, but you and I know he'll dodge easily. Tran immediately fires back, delivering a headbutt that leaves the guy's nose gushing blood like a faucet. Internally, Tran is just glad he has magic. It makes life so much easier. Anything he wishes for becomes reality, as long as he has the mana to pay. Another villager charges at Tran with zero hesitation. He tries to swing a stick, but Tran just whispers a single word, fall. The wish takes hold. The guy face-plants into the dirt before he can even reach him. Tran keeps playing with them. You and I can see he doesn't need to get serious for this mob. His only goal, give them a beating they won't forget while making sure they actually survive. Tran snatches a stick, smashes one guy's face with it, and then uses him as a human shield to take all the hits for him. By the end, Tran mops the floor with them while making sure to keep his magical wizard powers a complete secret. Once the dust settles, Tran doesn't hold back his tongue as he berates the whole lot of them. He tells them to take that pathetic energy and use it to go organize poor Robin's funeral instead of bothering him. With the men down, he turns to the ladies and asks if they are also there to try and fight him. But the women immediately throw their hands up in surrender. They swear they don't want any trouble at all and claim they were only stopping by to offer him a friendly greeting. Tran couldn't care less. Clearly, these women don't have the guts to actually throw down like the men did. He simply orders the ladies to drag their unconscious men back down the mountain and get out of his sight. Back inside the quiet safety of his own four walls. He knows this won't be the end of it. Those greedy villagers will definitely try to use this incident to scam him during his next trade. Regardless, he's not worried. If they try to cheat him, he will just beat them until he gets a fair deal out of them. Tran figures the peace will last now that he has given those idiots a lesson they won't soon forget. But then knock, knock. He rips the door open, ready to blow up at whoever is bothering him, and demands to know who is there. But he freezes. The dude standing right there in front of his door definitely does not look like any of the local villagers. Tran demands to know who he is. The stranger just wants a small favor concerning his long travels across the land. Though he realizes he might have interrupted Tran at a very inconvenient time. Tran cools off and apologizes, explaining that he just had some very annoying uninvited guests over earlier. Deep down, Tran isn't even sure if he's being polite. Talking to other people really isn't his strong suit these days. Still, his mother's voice rings in his head about using proper manners. Attempting to make things better, Tran tells the stranger he is welcome inside if he is looking for a place to stay. Before long, Tran whips up what can only be described as a literal feast for his mysterious new guest. They share a meal and start discussing things. Tran admits he stays away from the village because he has been a hill dweller since the day he was born. Actually, he has lived as a simple shepherd his entire life, and he tells the traveler it's rare for this tiny town to see any tourists. The man is impressed. He says Tran's manners are surprisingly sharp for someone who grew up in total isolation as a shepherd. Tran reveals that he learned everything from his mother, but he mentions that she has already passed away after a sudden and painful illness. The stranger offers a silent prayer, assuring Tran his mother is surely in heaven for raising such a fine and respectable son. Once the heavy talk ends, they settle into a casual chat, and Tran finally asks what on earth brings a man like him all the way to this country town. The man reveals he's on a contract mission. Someone hired him to come out here and take care of a monster in the village, finally dropping the bombshell that he is actually a wizard. Tran is stunned. He realizes this must be that legendary wizard Rouse everyone has been whispering about lately. Then the wizard speaks up. He says he has a burning question. Tran tells him he's more than free to go ahead and ask. The wizard admits he can sense a monster's presence, yet he can't actually see where the creature is hiding. What's weirder is how calm Tran is. He clearly knows what's going on, yet he hasn't even blinked at the news. Usually, a guy like Tran would be the monster's first target, but he doesn't look afraid at all. The wizard notes that Tran is exceptionally brave for a simple shepherd who has never even left the town before. Then, with a cold and piercing gaze, the wizard asks, "Who exactly are you?" The wizard drops a massive bombshell, asking Tran point-blank if he is a wizard. This instantly sends Tran into a state of pure damage control. We see a flashback where he once asked his mother what happens if his secret ever gets out. His mother had used a grim analogy about bad nobles acting like shepherds. She explained that if nobles are the shepherds in this world, then the knights are nothing more than the dogs those nobles keep. They might treat you with love, but they will sacrifice you without hesitation if necessary. She never wanted that life for him, and made it clear that no one can ever find out he is a wizard, especially other wizards. She warns that if they find out, they will take him away and turn him into a disposable dog to be thrown away later. To prevent anyone from finding out his secret, she says he might actually have to take a life. Back in the present, Tran is already weighing that dark option. The wizard notices the chilling expression on Tran's face and asks why he is refusing to answer. Just as Tran is about to make a lethal move, the wizard diffuses the tension. He claims it was just a joke, though Tran's scary face totally killed the vibe. Stunned and relieved, Tran finally calms down and offers a very quick apology, admitting that he doesn't really have a great sense of humor. The wizard laughs it off and says he should be the one apologizing for the scare. Tran smiles, noting that it is his very first time hearing a wizard tell a joke. The remark had completely caught him off guard. Realizing they have not shared names, the wizard introduces himself as Kaorn, a simple wanderer. They share a handshake, and Tran finally reveals his own identity as well. Tran says he turns 18 this year, but Kaorn reveals he is actually 75. Tran is shocked because he looks so young, but Kaorn explains that wizards age much slower than humans. They live much longer, too. Curious, Tran asks how he became a nomad. Kaorn explains that after serving the Arabian family for 60 years, he just left it all behind to roam the world without a home. Before he knows it, Tran is deep in conversation with the man. He is amazed that he can feel this comfortable around a total stranger. As the hour grows late, Kaorn tells Tran it is time for him to head out. He places a gleaming Arabian silver coin on the table, calling it the purest of silver and more than enough for the food. Tran gratefully accepts the coin and wishes Kaorn good luck on his upcoming hunt. Kaorn tells Tran not to treat this like a final goodbye, because he might stop by a few more times to grab a free meal. The next morning, Tran is back in the fields, looking more energized than ever. It makes sense, meeting a real wizard for the first time was incredible. Especially having such an easy, comfortable conversation that felt so natural. Tran admits Kaorn was funnier than any other adult he has ever met. The night before, Kaorn returned with fresh game from the hunt, and Tran decided he truly is a good man. Before this, Tran thought all knights were just heartless dogs serving arrogant lords. Now, Tran is just wondering how to tell Kaorn that the monsters on the hill are all gone. That evening, Kior scouts the shadows of the forest. He finds obvious signs of a struggle, but no monster spirit nearby. He spots a stone wedged into a fallen tree, leaving him to wonder if the monster was already dealt with. Right at that moment, he wonders who the hunter was. Did the village chief hire another wizard behind his back? Still, it's a relief knowing the threat might be gone. The area should be safe now, and that's what matters. But suddenly, he catches a scent of something truly foul. He spins around to find the leopard monster Tran killed walking right toward him. But things just got ugly because the beast has become a wraith. Kaor absolutely panics since he never expected a situation like this. While he's still trying to grasp the nightmare before him, the creature lunges, forcing him to leap back in a hurry. See, if a wizard kills a beast but doesn't purify the mana from its corpse, it becomes a wraith. This is common knowledge for wizards, and he assumes everyone knows the rules. The beast charges once more. Kaor leaps high to dodge the strike. Now he's certain a wizard killed it, but the mystery remains. Why would they leave it to become a wraith? He wonders if the person was just a novice. But then again, he can't believe that because no novice could possibly defeat a monster as strong as this leopard. Since he can't solve the mystery, Kior decides there's only one option: destroy it. Kior manifests a magic arrow and lets it fly at the beast. But to his horror, the attack is nullified instantly. His heart sinks. This thing has more mana than he does. Before he can react, the monster vanishes. Panic sets in as he realizes he has no idea what's coming next. Suddenly, it's behind him. A powerful slash tears through the air, grazing his skin. Reality hits hard. A mere knight stands no chance against a monster of this caliber. He realizes fast. You'd need to be a lower-ranked noble just to survive this. Sweat pours down his face. Finding a monster this deadly in a backwater village is insane. Given the situation, Korn realizes he's a dead man. But he won't go down easy. He's taking this thing to hell with him. He concentrates every drop of mana into his hand. The plan: stab the beast directly the moment it tries to finish the job. Right on cue, the monster lunges. Korn leaps forward, ready to trade his own life to end this nightmare. But just before impact, a massive blast of magic tears through the woods and obliterates the monster in one shot. Kieran's face says it all, pure relief. Just then, he hears it. A familiar voice behind him asks if he's doing all right. Kieran turns in absolute shock. Tran was a powerful wizard this entire time. Tran confirms the truth, leaving Can to wonder why he kept it secret. Tran stays silent. Korn presses him, asking why he bothered helping when he could have simply walked away. Tran finally decides to explain. He remembers the night before, when Korn returned from the hunt with a massive wild beast. Tran had asked why he played hero when those skills could make him rich. Korn's reason was simple. These frontier villagers were completely defenseless and needed someone's help. Tran told him it wasn't his problem. But Korn explained that he is a wizard who carries a god's power. He felt obligated to protect everyone. He knew most wizards did not agree. Everyone has their own path and their own philosophy. Back in the present, Tran repeats those same words. Everyone has their own way of living. Suddenly, the beast lunges again. They barely manage to throw themselves out of the way. Korn warns that this monster is out of their league. Only a noble tier warrior could hope to survive this fight. Tran tells Korn to run. He needs to warn the village and evacuate everyone while Tran buys them some precious time. Deep down, Korn is terrified. He knows he is outmatched, but he still has to play his part. That's when Tran tells him not to worry. His last strike wasn't even full power. There is nothing to fear. Korn is stunned. Tran is basically admitting he was holding back during that entire life or death struggle. It is a shocking realization. This guy is operating at the level of a high-ranking noble. Korn watches as Tran begins drawing in the surrounding mana for one massive strike. And that is when Korn realizes he is looking at a wizard capable of turning the entire world upside down. At the same time, Tran is ready to push himself. He wants to see exactly where his limits lie. With mana surging, he lifts massive stones into the air to use as projectiles against the wraith. Korn refuses to leave him. No one should face a wraith alone. Talent aside, this monster is just too tough for one person to handle. They need to fight together. But he stops cold when Tran fires his first wave. The sheer lethality of the attack is terrifying. He realizes he would only be a distraction. His only job now is to witness this incredible talent bloom. The impact is devastating, but as the dust clears, the wraith is still standing. Tran is totally shocked. Korn yells out that physical attacks are useless against a wraith. Tran asks how he is supposed to kill it then. The answer is simple: you need fire or lightning to finish it. Tran tries to burn the creature immediately. It fails. Korn realizes he is doing it all wrong. He cannot believe Tran is missing the most basic common sense of a wizard. Using a wizard's power on a living creature. It requires a very specific, basic process. A dark thought hits Korn. Tran might be the one who created this wraith originally. The wraith keeps rampaging, determined to tear Tran apart at any cost. But Korn finally realizes the insane truth. Tran, the guy, has never absorbed a single drop of mana in his entire life. Korn quickly warns Tran not to just light a simple fire. He needs to manifest the flame and then fire it off. Following the advice, Tran starts brewing a flame right in his palm. Now, making fire is basic stuff for any wizard. But actually controlling that heat, that takes years of specialized, brutal training to master. Yet, he is left absolutely speechless when Tran conjures a massive fireball without breaking a single sweat. Tran lets it rip, blasting the wraith and cranking up the heat the longer it stays in contact. The wraith shrieks in agony. Kjorn yells for him to keep pouring mana into the flames so the fire stays hot. He can't let it go out until every last bit of that wraith is burned into oblivion. Tran keeps the pressure on with a stone-cold face until that wraith is reduced to nothing but a charred, blackened skeleton. Kior is stunned. They actually just took down an incredibly high-level opponent. Kjorn is totally rattled. A monster that usually requires a noble wizard was just crushed by a random shepherd from the mountains. Tran asks if it is over, but Korn tells him to absorb the mana quickly. Otherwise, more wraiths will be coming soon. Tran asks how exactly. Korn explains that he just needs to visualize himself draining the energy and pulling it deep inside his own body. Tran nods, reaching out his hand to give it a shot, just like he was told to do. Suddenly, the mana begins swirling out of the monster's corpse and flows directly into Tran's very being. Kjorn mentions the rush of pleasure he should be feeling, and Tran admits he didn't even think it was possible. Kjorn has to double-check. Is this really his first time ever absorbing mana? Tran simply says yes. Usually, after a person first awakens. Mana grows naturally as you age, but the real shortcut is killing monsters or other wizards and stealing their power. But it is absolutely insane that Tran is handling high-tier magic like a pro during his very first mana absorption session. It is clear that Tran's potential is just on another level. Suddenly, Kjorn calls out his name. He apologizes for being so rude and asks which noble house he actually comes from. Tran just tells Korn to take care of his mangled arm first, leaving the man stunned by his bluntness. They head back to the house to clean up the nasty wound on his arm. After getting it bandaged up, Korn offers another apology for putting Tran through so much stress. Still, Tran reminds him once again that he is no noble. He is just a mountain shepherd who doesn't even know the name of his own father. Korn can't help but ask why someone this powerful would waste their life herding sheep. He quickly clarifies that he has no intention of belittling him or his work. It is just that being a shepherd doesn't suit a man of his talents. Tran explains it was his mother's wish. His mother always warned him that nobles just use wizards up and toss them away like trash. After hearing that, Kjorn surprisingly admits that Tran's mother was actually very wise. Tran is caught off guard. He expected the guy to call his mother overprotective or maybe even crazy. But Korn doubles down on her wisdom. Great power like his, it always, without fail, acts as a magnet for bloody conflict. He recalls that several years back, a massive war erupted between the noble houses, specifically between the House of Arabian and the powerful House of Zahar. The carnage was unbelievable. Out of roughly 3,000 Arabian knights who went to battle, over 900 died. Heartbreakingly, Korn lost everyone he loved in that brutal war. He counts the dead, mourning the life he once shared with his wife and son. Being the sole survivor, he realizes his mother was actually right about one thing today. A knight's life is fragile, vanishing faster and with less meaning than even commoners. However, he quickly points out where she was totally wrong, and that's concerning Tran's actual aptitude. Tran is baffled. Korn admits he is just an average knight with basic skills. Yet Tran took down a monster that even he couldn't defeat. Korn explains that Tran's potential matches a high noble, far beyond a simple knight. To put it simply, his talent belongs in the absolute upper tiers. Tran mentions his mother told him his father was a knight, but it feels like a total lie. Korn explains the harsh truth. There are noble children far worse than knights, and knight children with noble souls. There are also incredible children with noble-level talent born among simple knights. Korn suggests it's finally time for Tran to leave this lonely hill behind. When asked why, he says humanity desperately needs more strong nobles and brave knights. Turns out, humans aren't at the top of the food chain yet. Other races, driven out by the gods, are hiding in the shadows, waiting for their chance. While the world faces this looming destruction, the current nobles are too busy fighting each other for scrap. That's why people like Tran, strong and kind, are the only hope left. Korn reaches the door, asking if Tran is truly happy just being a shepherd. Tran takes a moment to wonder what exactly he could gain by going down the mountain, and Korn simply replies that it all depends on what he wants. From fame to starting a family, everything worth having is a struggle. But the possibilities are only limited by his own imagination. Stepping out, Korn suggests he could be a wanderer, a hero, or an explorer. He could hunt monsters or venture into the unknown parts of the map. In fact, he can even get himself adopted into a house and walk the path of power. Tran follows him and agrees that exploring the wide world sounds much more exciting than herding sheep on this lonely hill all day. For the first time, he feels a genuine spark of curiosity about the world. On the flip side, Korn worries he might be pushing his own expectations onto the boy. Still, he promises to support Tran with everything he has got, no matter the path. Then, Korn asks about his bloodline ability, but Tran has absolutely no clue what that is. Korn laughs it off, realizing he forgot Tran knows next to nothing about the world of magic. Korn then explains that bloodline abilities are special traits inherited from their divine ancestors, the Freyans. Having a bloodline is the one true thing that separates a noble from everyone else. He asks if any particular spell felt strangely natural or easy to use, or if he has a talent that functions without mana. Tran mentions his keen sense of smell and his weirdly good aim with stones. Korn nods. That smell, totally a bloodline trait, and throwing weapons, that's a classic House Arabian specialty. It is a common trait, sure, but Korn is eager to hear what else Tran can do. After explaining the rest of his skills, you and I see Korn's expression has completely shifted now. Tran asks him why. Korn reveals he finally knows Tran's true lineage. Tran asks him which house it is, and with a chilling voice, Korn answers. He reveals it is House Sahar, one of the legendary great houses. The very family that waged war against House Arabian. Hearing this, Tran finally understands why Korn's face suddenly turned so cold. Tran can't believe he belongs to the bloodline that Korn despises so much. He is left speechless, wondering what he could possibly say to the man. He considers offering an apology. But then he realizes these sins were committed by family members he has never even met before. To him, those ancestors are practically strangers. Kieran sees the worry on Tran's face and gives him a reassuring tap on the shoulder. He tells Tran not to worry, since the boy never actually fought in that bloody war. At that same moment, Tran tries to speak up, but Kior stops him, calling this a complicated adult situation. He explains that washing blood with more blood only leads to a cycle of endless fighting. Tran then asks Kieran if he regrets telling him to finally head down the mountain. Kieran admits that if Tran seeks power after leaving this mountain, he will eventually find himself joining the Zahar family. But he trusts Tran's character. Tran, however, is completely confused by what he means. Kieran clarifies that he is talking about the innate goodness that drove Tran to save him from the monster. On top of that, Tran has finally revealed the secret identity he spent his whole life hiding. Korn believes that if someone like Tran gains power within the Zahar house, things might change. He could be the key to preventing another terrible war. Kay turns to leave, advising Tran not to stress about it too much, especially since the boy hasn't even decided if he actually wants to join the Zahar family yet. Tran stops him. He declares his mind is finally made up. He wants to go down the mountain. Korn praises him, telling Tran that he has made the right choice. But Tran isn't leaving just yet. He tells Kor that he will only head down once Kjorn's injuries have fully healed up. Kjorn is taken aback by this and admits that Tran is truly a decent person. Later on, Korn sits him down to explain the fundamental basics of their world. He explains that to use magic, you need to master mana. That is why it is called the key to omnipotence, though he warns Tran it is not truly an all-powerful force. Despite what the name implies. To use magic effectively, the mana must match the spell. Curious, Tran asks what standard determines if mana matches a specific magic. Kieran explains that the difficulty of magic usually comes down to 3 major factors. The first factor is bloodline, the second one is affinity, and the third is causality. Bloodline is determined at birth. This factor usually applies to most nobles who chose the path of a mage over a knight. He gives an example, explaining that it would be very difficult for Tran to heal his own wounds using magic, since he is not part of the race to bloodline from the south, who can perform such feats without even training. As for the second factor, affinity, Korn describes it as a level of natural familiarity. It is the idea that a mage can effortlessly perform tasks they are personally comfortable with. Like how he conjured that fireball as easily as if we were watching him throw a simple rock. Tran agrees with this point, admitting that without those flames, he never would have reached that level of speed or raw power. Then there is causality, a concept he confesses is still a total mystery to him. Kyorin then asks what would happen if he tried to kill a target using pure mana. Tran figures some light might shine from his head, but beyond that, absolutely nothing would happen. Kyorin explains that this failure is the perfect example of a complete lack of causality. He rests his hand over a cup, making the liquid inside start to bubble and boil. This is exactly what happens in magic. When there is no logical cause for a result, or when the goal is just way too difficult to reach. Tran starts to catch on, realizing that if he actually wanted to take down someone like Kan, he needs a logical cause of death, like a fire spell, instead of just wishing for them to drop dead. To test the theory, Tran repeats the process and ignites a flame on the cup. He notes it is much more practical, because creating a fireball feels more natural to the world than just making something burst into flames. Kyorin is genuinely impressed by how quickly Tran managed to grasp these complex theories, even joking that he could have been a professor instead of a simple mage. Tran mentions he can already control animals at will, but wonders why magical beasts require causality too. Kyorin explains it is all tied to their internal mana. And the two dive into a long, technical discussion about the fundamental laws of magic. Eventually, Kyorin reveals that the Zahar bloodline possesses a unique magic, focused entirely on high-level stealth and tracking. He encourages Tran to give it a shot, and our lead is happy to oblige. Tran focuses on his wish to vanish, and to Kyorin's utter shock, he actually pulls it off. When Tran reappears, a stunned Kyorin admits it has been ages since he has seen that terrifying ability in person. He explains to Tran that this specific power was what the Arabian Knights feared most during the Great War. Still, Kyorin warns him that while it is incredibly strong, it is not invincible. He promises to teach Tran even more advanced training methods, prompting a bit of hesitation from the young mage. Tran asks if he is really okay with teaching so much to a member of an enemy family. Kyorin simply points out that he saved Tran's life and genuinely trusts the kid's character. A bit later, Tran heads into the village to announce he is selling his sheep and leaving for good. He has already packed up everything he owns, causing the village head to panic and wonder why he would make such a massive choice alone. Tran bluntly tells him to find a new shepherd, because what he does with his own property is his business. He demands they buy the sheep at a fair price, because if they try to lowball him, he will just set the entire flock free and walk away. He tells them they are more than welcome to try and catch them all, though he is pretty sure they are going to have a miserable time doing it. The chief is fuming with rage, but he knows Tran is not the type to bluff, so there is no use making him angry. With no other choice, the chief pays up and tells Tran to do whatever he wants. With that settled, Kyorin and Tran finally head out. But Tran suddenly remembers that the villagers still owe Kyorin for his help. Ka refuses any payment. Since Tran was the one who actually took down the monster, he says he's keepin' his gold. Soon they reach a crossroads. This is where the journey ends for them, as Kyor decides it's time to head out. He apologizes for turning down the team-up offer, explaining that he's just way more comfortable flying solo. Tran tells him it's all good, but makes sure to thank him for everything. And just like that, the two bid each other farewell. Tran waves him off. Hop in, their paths cross again when things are a bit more cheerful. As Ka fades into the horizon, Tran realizes just how much he'd been craving a father figure all this time. Shaking it off, he presses on alone. Trekking through the scorching desert, he eventually spots a strange group of people in the distance. He wonders if they're just traveling merchants, maybe moving between local villages to trade their wares. Figuring he needs help, Tran approaches them for directions. The group gets defensive at first, thinking Tran wants a fight. But he quickly clarifies things. He's just a lonely traveler looking for the quickest route to the nearest city. The guy sportin', an eye patch tells him to follow the road they just came from, revealing that he'll eventually reach a city called Murai. Tran steps aside, giving them a polite nod of thanks for the info. But wait, just as he's about to walk away, the eye patch man stops him. He claims that information isn't free. If Tran wants the tip, he's gotta cough up something in return. Before Tran can even react, the whole group surrounds him, and yeah, they're heavily armed. It finally clicks. These guys are bandits. The leader sneers, reminding Tran that in this lawless wasteland, nobody would find it strange if another traveler just happened to turn up dead. He gives an ultimatum. Hand over the gear while they're still feeling nice, because having to kill him would just be a total drag. Tran actually laughs it off, telling these thugs that since they're such terrible people, he might just use them for a bit of target practice. That wicked grin on his face, it's enough to give anyone the creeps. The bandits aren't buying it though. They move in closer, convinced he's just talking big. With a simple flick of his hand, Tran summons a gust of wind that sends them flying. Even Tran's a bit shocked. He barely used any mana, yet he just whipped up a localized hurricane. The bandits are groaning in the dirt. Totally dazed, that's when Tran pulls out his water gourd for round 2. He manipulates the liquid into sharp arrows, firing them straight through one of the bandits' limbs. Still, he's not satisfied. Honestly, he thinks just hurling a heavy stone would be way more effective. Right about now, the leader realizes they've messed with the wrong guy. He immediately drops to his knees, begging for mercy. He promises anything to save his skin, but meanwhile, the others are trying to jump Tran from behind. They're inches away from him when Tran stomps his foot, and boom, sand spikes erupt from the ground, impaling every single one of them. The leader is absolutely terrified. Tran just looks at him and says he's got one simple question. Shaking like a leaf, the dude swears he'll tell him absolutely anything he wants to know. Tran asks why they'd attack someone so recklessly. I mean, what if he'd been a high-level wizard or something? The leader explains that Tran was way too polite, even when they were being total jerks to him. Not only that, he actually bowed his head in greeting. They just assumed he was some weak, ordinary civilian. Tran actually thanks the guy. Apparently, that little bit of bandit logic just taught him a very valuable lesson. The bandit leader is still begging for mercy, but looking up, he sees only death in Tran's eyes. Before Tran and Korn left the mountain, Korn warned him never to show scum like this any mercy. They never hesitate to hurt people after all. Tran gets it now. Spare one monster out of pity, and 10 innocent lives might pay the price later. With that settled, Tran prepares to leave, taking the very same path the bandits used to ambush him. But as he walks further on, it finally hits him. He actually just killed people for the first time. Even with a heavy knot of guilt. He knew letting them go wasn't an option. Ka's warning was loud and clear in his head. After trekking through the wasteland and replaying Korn's lessons, something incredible finally comes into view. Tran looks down from the cliff and sees it, the city of Marai. Welcome to the new world, folks. And the second he steps inside, he's completely stunned. He's never seen this many people in one place in his entire life. Everything is different here. Even the buildings look nothing like the ones back in his village. For the first time, it actually feels like he's finally reached a real city. Tran spots a man selling fruit and walks over to give him a friendly greeting. The seller assumes he's buying, but Tran has to let him know he's not actually a customer. He's just following Ka's advice. First thing you do in a new city, find a place to sleep. He asks for directions to an inn, but the reception isn't exactly warm. The fruit seller just snaps at him to get lost. No purchase means no help around here. Tran is confused. Is there some rule where we have to buy fruit just to ask a question? Fine then, he points to an apple and asks how much it costs. It costs 2 dupit. Tran pulls out 2 coins, but his currency immediately screams that he's an outsider to the seller. Still, the man isn't picky. Other coins will work just fine for the transaction. Before handing over the money, Tran asks again about that inn he's looking for. The seller tells him to go straight behind the cape shop and then take a sharp left. Just look for the building with the blue roof, the man tells him. It's the biggest and best inn in the entire city. Following the directions, Tran finds the spot and is greeted by a staff member named Lena. When he asks the price, she tells him a night's stay will cost 16 dupit. Tran agrees to the price, but he's got one more thing on his mind. He asks her if there are any dangerous monsters nearby with a bounty on them. Lena is baffled, but Tran has a goal: kill monsters, absorb their mana, and get stronger. Not only that, Korn mentioned that hunting monsters is great for making money too, but Lena stays quiet. Why the silence? She finally speaks up, reminding him that nothing in this world is free. After he pays up, she tells him to head over to the city halls. Tran is lost. City halls, Lena explains that's where all the local business gets handled. The officials working there are all employed directly by the city lord himself. But there's a catch. Since it's already late, the place is likely closed. She tells him to go tomorrow morning instead. That's where he'll find his monster bounties. Lena asks if he's a monster hunter, but Tran doesn't even know what that is. Lena smiles and shares an old saying: if an ordinary person hunts monsters, they become a wizard. So Lena assumes Tran is aiming for wizardry, when suddenly, this rugged-looking guy shows up out of nowhere. It is Madden, a professional monster hunter, sneaking right up behind Tran. He backs Lena up, claiming what she said is a fact because he witnessed it himself. It turns out that Lena and Madden are actually old acquaintances. She is shocked he is still breathing, but Madden boasts he won't die until he finally attains wizard status. That catches Tran's attention, so he asks the guy to tell him a bit more about it. Madden explains the secret: wizards gain their strength by slaying monsters. That same rule applies to any normal person. Slay a monster, and you might just become a wizard yourself. Madden reveals his whole crew is out here hunting monsters to reach that level. Tran gets excited and asks if any of them are already wizards. Madden quickly says no. He mentions this city only has the Lord's head wizard and 3 subordinates serving under him. Madden scoffs at Tran's hunting claims, immediately looking him up and down. He says his gear is way too shabby, and the kid doesn't even have a weapon. But Tran just smirks and pulls out his trusty sling. Madden is actually impressed by how worn the sling looks. It shows Tran has put in serious work. Tran admits he has, since it is perfect for firing egg-sized projectiles at high speeds. Madden tells Tran he could at least hunt some fox or rabbit monsters with that sling. He mentions they want one more shooter on the team and asks if he's interested in the hunt. Naturally, though, Tran politely turns him down, but you have to appreciate the dude's consideration. Later that night, Tran heads to his room, reflecting on just how chaotic the day has been. He wonders what the future holds, still unable to believe he actually packed up and left his village. Tran is practicing his magic when his sharp senses tell him that someone is lurking nearby. He bolts upright from his bed, demanding to know exactly who is outside. Master Kayor's training rings in his head: never, ever let your guard down. Even staying in a city inn, safety is just an illusion. You have to stay ready. Tran braces himself for a fight as he reaches for the door handle. But instead, it is just Lena standing there, asking ridiculous questions like whether or not he was already fast asleep. Lena claims she is there to keep him warm, thinking his room might be a bit chilly. Tran is baffled. He has absolutely no idea what she is trying to say. Lena gestures to her chest, making it clear that he heard her exactly right. Yet our hero is still totally lost. She finally drops the act, offering to do whatever he desires for a little bit of cash. When Tran asks what happens if he wants nothing, she suddenly grabs him by the shoulders. She tells him to stop lying. She can see the desire all over his face. Suddenly, Tran's expression turns ice cold. That is because he remembers Master Ka's warning: Stay away from these women because most carry diseases. Wizards might have resistance to sickness. But the issue is that he could pass it on to another woman later. Master Kaor told him never to let his base desires trap him into a life of regret. Tran shuts her down completely, leaving Lena to storm off in a total huff. You and I can see it's finally dawning on him that city life is a massive headache, from the fruit shop to Lena. Tran lies back, lost in thought. They put a price tag on every little thing, making him realize how cold-hearted city life really is. Meanwhile, one of Madon's men wonders why he'd recruit a weak-looking kid like Tran in the first place. Another laughs that Tran's mouth is way too cocky, making him better suited as simple monster bait. Midden just smiles, telling his comrades that the kid reminds him exactly of his younger self. It seems Midden was actually worried about those primitive-looking weapons Tran uses for his hunts. He wants Tran close by, hoping to keep the kid alive just a little while longer. His crew is shocked. They can't believe their boss is actually such a soft-hearted guy. Little do they know, Tran can hear every single word they're saying from his room. A faint smile crosses his face. Maybe city folk aren't all stone cold after all, at least not as bad as he first feared. The next morning, Tran visits the hall and meets a rude official. He calmly states that he is there to hunt monsters. The man's cold stare brings back memories of what Ka once warned him, that the world wouldn't be kind. Tran once asked Korn why the world was so cruel. The answer, because it has no reason to be nice. Korn told him then, the only way to earn respect and kindness is to show everyone he's a wizard. Once people realize his power, they'll have no choice but to bow their heads before him. The official shoves a book at him, telling the kid to look at his target before heading out. It's a crow monster, a dangerous one. The man tells him to bring the corpse back, assuming he can even survive the encounter. He warns that failing to absorb the mana turns it into a wraith, but Tran already knows the drill. If he messes up, the city law is simple. The penalty for that mistake is execution. Tran asks why the knights don't just handle these monsters themselves. The man scoffs. Knights are far too busy with important matters to waste time on this. See, knights keep order inside the walls, while the dangerous work outside is left to expendable hunters like Tran. Tran ignores the man's attitude and sets off, focused only on finding his target. The official just sighs, certain the kid is walking straight to his death. But soon after, Tran returns with a massive crow monster. A gaping hole through its chest leaves everyone speechless. The officials are stunned, not just by the kill, but by how insanely fast he finished the job. They ask if he really did it alone. Tran just nods, ignoring the chatter and asking for his reward. One man rushes to the counter to count the gold. As he hands it over, his entire attitude flips. He even suggests Tran should rest, worried the kid might be exhausted. The officials are confused. The kill was incredibly clean. Almost the entire monster corpse is perfectly preserved for study. That's when the rude official from earlier realizes that Tran hasn't actually left the building yet. He asks what's up, and Tran simply wants to know if there are more monsters worth hunting. They're speechless. They can't believe he still has the energy to go back out for another round so soon. 3 days later, Tran has already cleared 30 monsters. Lena serves him the finest dish on her menu as a reward. She mentions he must be getting rich, but Tran explains that money isn't his primary goal here. He's actually after the mana, using every hunt to fuel his growth. Thanks to this non-stop hunting spree, his strength has reached a whole new level. His mana pool has grown massive compared to back when he first met Korn. However, he knows there is a limit to how strong he can get with weak monster mana. Moments later, Tran has finished every bite of food in front of him. He even believes someone shared the feast with him, but they tell him he ate everything solo. Tran commends the chef, telling him the meal was absolutely delicious. The chef accepts the praise, promising to make it even better next time. Tran is about to head to his room when he is suddenly grabbed. Midden's lackey grabs him from behind and demands cash, having heard that Tran is earning big lately. Tran doesn't even argue. He just delivers a crisp, shocking slap across his face. The guy's friend tries to fight back by throwing a punch at Tran. But he easily dodges the swing and punches the guy right in the face. The first dude rushes toward Tran again while swinging a wooden stool. Tran easily blocks the attack before sending the dude flying with a quick flicker. Lena then screams at the whole group, telling them not to fight in her inn. Later on, Midden shows up at Tran's door to talk. He bows his head in apology, explaining that he already scolded the culprits and ensures it won't happen again. Midden mentions that the whole group has been incredibly tight on money lately. He explains they likely got jealous of the huge amount of gold Tran is making. Midden barks at the two to apologize, and they follow their boss's orders immediately. Tran then asks Midden if things are really getting that difficult for them. He reveals the truth that in just 3 days, they might not even be able to pay the room fee. Tran suddenly hands him a money pouch, shocking Midden, who asks why he is giving it. Tran tells him it is repayment for the kindness shown when Midden worried about him. Madden is completely stunned by the gesture. He asks Tran how he knew, but our hero just ignores the question. However, Tran reminds him nothing is free and asks for some valuable information. With a bright smile on his face, Madden agrees. He assures Tran he will tell him everything because information is what he does best. The next day, Tran heads out on a hunt. He believes this is his last hunt here since Madden gave him intel on the next city. So it is time to move on. Madden really did provide some top-tier information. And it appears that Madden is actually a very good man. Even though he is not as seasoned as Kaor, he is purer and kinder. Suddenly, Tran catches a whiff of a strong, metallic smell. He dashes in that direction immediately, hoping it is not what he thinks. Tran arrives at the source, finding nothing but the heavy scent of blood. Worse yet, he finds the fighter from yesterday lying there with a bloodied body. Then he finds Madden's body on the ground, wondering what on earth could have happened. Just then, one of the crew members, who is still alive, manages to speak up with his final strength. He tells Tran that the killer was a rabbit monster. Tran turns to find the culprit watching, and suddenly, the rabbit lunges with blinding speed. Tran almost gets hit, but manages to dodge the strike at the last second. Tran whips out his sling and hurls a stone, but the rabbit easily dodges. It dawns on Tran that the beast is used to defending against long-range weapons. That rabbit lunges at Tan once more. But suddenly, Tran becomes totally invisible. The beast is confused. Before it knows it, Tan appears behind and plunges a dagger into its neck. However, the rabbit still lands a counter that sends Tran flying. It charges again, relentless, forcing Tran to activate his invisibility one more time. Annoyed, the monster goes wild, destroying everything to find where Tan is hiding. Huge trees are sliced like paper in its path. Running out of strength, it shrieks one last time before dying. With the beast dead, Tran absorbs its mana. But wait, he notices that the amount of energy he is absorbing is totally different. This power is way beyond that leopard monster from the village. Right then, the last guy on the team is stunned to realize that Tran is actually a wizard. Tran doesn't deny it, but the man wonders why he'd keep it a secret. Tran ignores the question and asks if they have families to receive their belongings. The answer is a sad no. It takes Tran back to the previous night when Midden told him about the great city of Orem. Word is, Orem has a library containing thousands of ancient books. But there's a catch. Only wizards are ever allowed through those doors. After burying the crew, Tran reveals his decision to finally head for Orem, and he wishes Midden a perfect rest before walking away. By the time he arrives, Murai was just a small town. Orem could literally swallow the whole place up. At the city gate, he's shocked by the sheer number of people fighting to get inside. Tran wonders if guards are searching for criminals. It's a great city, so it makes sense. But as he tries to enter, a guard stops him. The guard sneers, saying no one in such filthy rags is allowed to step inside. He tells Tran to go find a hole to clean himself first. A bit later, Tran finally enters and finds the massive library. It's absolutely breathtaking. Because of its sheer scale, Tran concludes it was definitely built with magic, right there at the entrance. Guards stop him again, stating this place is strictly for wizards only. Tran simply says he's a wizard. This pisses off the guards, who think he's just some low-life impersonator. One guard reaches out, but suddenly, he feels an eerie sensation in his hand. You see, Kieran once told him that wizards can sense each other's mana signatures. Through that alone, they can tell if someone is leagues above them. The man is nearly crushed by Tran's massive pressure. He hits the floor, leaving his partner confused as to what is wrong. The guard insists he is fine. But deep down, he knows Tran is terrifying. This guy is at least noble class or higher. He quickly stands up and introduces himself as Kenya, a knight of House Voltas. Kenya asks for his house name, but Tran just wants to get inside. Kenya clarifies the rules, to use this massive library. You'll need direct permission from the head of House Voltas. Kenya drops a bombshell, revealing he is about to reach out to House Voltas. Before Tran can even blink, what seemed like a routine task lands him inside the massive mansion. He is led to a grand bath, where a group of maids begin washing him down thoroughly. Things finally get too awkward. So he tells them to stop, asking if he can just finish the job himself. The maids panic, insisting they will be punished if they fail to properly serve such an esteemed guest. Not wanting to cause any trouble for them, Tran just sighs and tells them to carry on. Once they finish and Tran puts on the high-end clothes provided for him. Even the maids are stunned by his beauty. They beg for his forgiveness, but he kindly assures them all is well. But the maids beg him to stop using casual speech, leaving Tran completely baffled by the whole situation. Soon after, Tran meets the rude young lady of the house, a fiery redhead named Azella. Azella immediately demands to know exactly which noble house he belongs to. Tran keeps it vague, replying that for personal reasons, he cannot reveal his background just yet. Azella is taken aback, but secretly, she is already plotting a devious prank since he is being secretive. Suddenly, Azella unleashes her mana, commanding Tran to show her his own power. Tran complies, while a bright yellow aura flares out from Azella's body. Tran counters with a massive blue aura. The sheer pressure is so overwhelming that everyone is forced to bow. After the display, Azella praises his strength before casually suggesting he should marry her. As expected, Tran is in total shock. Even her own butler has to step in, telling her to stop running her mouth like that. Azella tries to play it off as damage control, claiming it was all just a joke, but a moment later, she turns back to Tran and tells him to seriously consider it. Once Azella leaves, Tran looks down at his hands only to realize his fingers are trembling. It finally hits him that Azella's mana is actually on par with his own massive power. Moments later, he heads to the Patriarch's office to meet the head of the house, Rug Voltas. After they meet, Rug mentions he knows Tran wants to use the library, but warns him that no legendary magic is hidden inside. In fact, he clarifies that there is no secret technique there to help boost his mana capacity either. But Tran reassures him, saying he is perfectly fine because he never expected to find anything like that anyway. Rug shrugs and says he won't stop him since Tran is still determined to go in. He also reveals that there is absolutely nothing in that library that counts as sensitive or private information for their house. Since the day is almost over, Rug tells Tran to return tomorrow, and Tran promises him that he will never forget this generous favor. The next day, the guards greet Tran with total respect once they confirm his official library pass. Tran steps inside, and you and I can see he is totally stunned by how magnificent it is. He is still looking around when a boy named Ali suddenly appears, welcoming him to the massive archive while revealing that he is actually the head librarian. He tells Tran that it is time for him to go over the strict rules of the library. Internally, Tran is in total shock because he never expected such a small kid to be running this place. The boy explains the first rule: absolutely no damaging the books or he will have to pay for them. Second rule is simple: no books are allowed to leave the library under any circumstances. He then adds with a serious face that he will be keeping a very close eye on him. All right, let's pick up where Tran suggests the boy give him some space to read in peace. Since this young kid is the librarian, Tran asks if he reads as well, and the boy confirms he spends his time studying. He even offers to help Tran find any specific topic that grabs his interest. The librarian offers romance or history, but Tran just wants the basics, some common sense about this world. Before long, the boy brings out a stack of books, warning him they are hundreds of years old and outdated. He doubts they will be much use for what Tran is after. Then he presents a different set that should actually help. Tran thanks him, genuinely impressed by the sheer quality of these ancient texts. Opening a page feels like stepping into heaven. The information is just that incredible to him. Tran falls completely in love with reading, making it his new daily ritual. Through these books, he finally starts mapping out world geography. He learns about the different races, wizard etiquette, and even how various magical items are crafted. It is a deep dive into the secrets of manufacturing. With every new fact he picks up, the once mysterious world around him begins to feel much clearer and more vivid. Days later, Rug calls Tran into his office, having heard how much time he spends reading. Rug points out that while he is treating Tran like a true noble, giving him access to the library was purely an act of professional goodwill. Now the man wants a return on that favor, and as we expected, Tran tells him to name his price. Rug mentions a monster appearing north of the city that has been terrorizing helpless travelers. Tran asks if he is being recruited to hunt. Rug admits 4 knights already tried to kill it, but not a single one returned. He needs a noble to handle this, but the Valtis house can only spare 2 people right now. Tran is not actually bothered by this. Protecting civilians is a wizard's duty, though he senses something is definitely not right. Rug explains that the northern road has been completely blocked off. It is the city's most vital trade route, and it has been dead for 10 days. When Tran hears this, he realizes this mess started way before he even arrived. No wonder Rug was so generous with that library access. Soon, the hunting party prepares to leave the castle, and Azella is part of the squad. Azella complains, thinking her father is just being insecure by sending Tran along. Also joining them is a member of the main family, Marvin Valtis. As they head into the forest, Marvin asks if Tran has feelings for Azella. When Tran says no, Marvin lets out a huge sigh of relief. Eventually, they stumble upon a wrecked carriage, the brutal handiwork of the beast they are currently tracking. The soldiers start investigating the wreckage, but Tran is the first to sense what is actually happening. He tells the group their target is actually a monkey, leaving Azella wondering how he could possibly know. Tran points out a handprint. It is clear the monkey attacked the carriage before retreating back into the safety of the dark forest. He explains that they can easily find it by following the trail. Azella admits that neither she nor Marvin possess that kind of magic. All right, you and I are about to see Tran step up to have a look. Azella is totally stunned when she realizes Tran's true bloodline. He grabs a cloth from the ruins to track that monkey's scent. Sensing the mana trail, Tran points them toward their target. Let's see where this leads. Moments later, they arrive. The trail suddenly goes cold right at a stream. He tells them the beast likely washed off in the water. Ayla is shocked that a mere monster is smart enough to avoid being tracked. Tran tries to keep them calm, suggesting the monster might have just wanted a quick dip in the water. Suddenly, that scent hits him again. He screams for everyone to watch out. The monster is right behind them. Sure enough, the beast emerges from the shadows, looking absolutely nightmare-inducing. To make matters worse, the monkey starts hurling massive stones straight at the group. The rocks fly at lightning speed, tearing through the knights. Tran, however, manages to dodge the attack. Surprisingly, he sees Ayla and Marvin using their own knights as human shields. They did not even try to move. Disgust fills Tran. It turns out everything his mother warned him about was completely true. The beast tries to bolt, but Azella barks orders for the knights to hunt it down. Just as they are about to lose it, A stone whistles past Azella's head at a blinding speed, ripping through the formation and slamming into the monster, sending it crashing to the dirt. Ayla and Marvin spin around in total shock, only to see that Tran was the one who fired that lethal stone using his slingshot. With the beast down, Azella lets loose with her devastating fireball magic, roasting it with firepower so intense it nearly heats up the whole area. Tran is impressed that he finally witnessed the House Vultus bloodline. They are total pyromaniacs. Once the monkey is crispy and burnt, Azella admits that stone move gave her a real chill. She actually felt a moment of fear. While Ayla and Marvin are busy teasing each other, the wounded knights are left screaming for help. She just scolds them to stop whining. There is even a dude whose entire arm got torn off, leaving the rest of the team to start giving first aid to the wounded knights. Tran is just glad that there are no casualties. It could have been much worse. Now, even with the surprise of the attack, he knows these injuries were avoidable. Marvin and Azella are clearly way stronger than these simple knights. Yet they still chose to hide behind people weaker than them. Truly pathetic. Marvin catches the strange look on Tran's face and asks what's wrong. Tran just brushes it off, saying it is nothing. Azella then invites Tran to join them in absorbing the monster's mana. Tran agrees, and the three of them gather around the beast to begin the process. Tran remembers reading in a book that even if multiple people absorb mana at once, the enhancement doesn't decrease. A short while later, Marvin and Ayla have to stop. They have already reached their absolute mana limit. But to their surprise, Tran is still in the middle of absorbing even more mana. Azella finally understands why her father told him to follow them. His mana capacity and spell skills actually rival her own talent. In fact, honestly, it is terrifying because this noble has not even hit his peak growth limit yet. Later on, the group returns to the castle where Marvin praises Tran, giving him all the credit for the victory. However, Tran stays humble, claiming it was nothing special. He actually regrets not noticing the monster sooner, which gave the creature a chance to land the first strike. Besides, Tran never expected a monster to possess such high-level search abilities. The others are stunned to hear this. So Tran explains that different skills awaken based on a monster's unique physical traits. That monkey had massive hands and eyes, proving it was far from its original form. Tran believes that the monkey likely awakened the power to hurl objects with force and the ability to see through the forest. Marvin is completely floored by how much Tran actually knows about these creatures. Tran simply mentions that he studied a monster encyclopedia back at the library. Marvin is shocked, since no one ever goes to the library because it is so stuffy. Azella admits she went in once a long time ago out of curiosity. But the books were so difficult that she didn't even finish half a volume. Tran then tells them that the next time they get the chance, they should just ask the librarian if there are any easier books available. Azella looks confused when Tran mentions a librarian, as she never knew one even existed. A bit later, Tran heads to the library alone, where the librarian greets him with massive excitement. Standing before him, Tran realizes he made a mistake because this guy does not look like a librarian. Tran suddenly asks how he knows his name, and this catches the man completely off guard. Realizing he has been caught, he admits he saw it on Tran's permit, explaining he sees everything that happens in the building. Tran then asks what he is supposed to call him, and the man replies that he does not have a name. So he can call him whatever he wants. Tran decides to just call him the librarian. The librarian then makes the situation even more awkward with some very adult talk. Tran asks if he is from the old empire, but he says he was never human to begin with. He reveals that he is basically a spirit, and he and the library are one and the same. He mentions that his current appearance is just a way to communicate, customized based on the user's preference. Tran immediately argues that this weird form has nothing to do with his taste. The librarian refuses to accept this, insisting he is just a reflection of what Tran truly wants to see. Tran confirms this by touching the librarian, realizing his hand passes right through him. The librarian admits it is frustrating that he cannot physically use force on those in the library. If he could, he would have punished everyone who ever took a book out. Tran easily figures out that nobody knows he exists, and he replies that until now, no one had the qualifications to see him. His creator made him so only those who are above a certain level could perceive his form. This basically means Tran is the only person who can see him. Tran asks what he means by that, and he mentions something about a special bloodline. Tran then begs him for more info on the bloodline, but the librarian just teases him to ask his parents. Forced to admit he is an orphan, Tran allows the curious old man to investigate his mysterious background. But examining him requires physical consent, and a nervous Tran eventually gives the librarian the green light. Sinking his hand into Tran, the librarian senses the Zahar bloodlines, specifically the pursuer and hunter traits. Then, he senses a third power, hidden and strangely mixed. Tran is clearly the result of two very different and powerful bloodlines. When Tran asks for details, the librarian admits it is still completely locked away. Usually, sealed traits are common in hybrids, and they will likely unlock naturally as his power continues to grow. This finally confirms Tran's long-held suspicion that his mother was far too refined to be ordinary. Her education suggests she was likely a secret descendant of a high-ranking noble house. Tran thanks the librarian sincerely for his incredible help. The librarian appreciates the gratitude, but suggests that Tran stay for another full month instead. Tran continues his studies, with the old librarian sticking to his side like a shadow. Whenever Tran questions a text, the librarian is there to explain the deepest secrets of every book. He holds ancient knowledge that has been lost to the world for several thousand years. Down the line, he teaches Tran the fundamental laws of nature, completely blowing the young man's mind. Tran discovers that diseases are actually caused by tiny microorganisms. He finds out that decay is just germs feeding on the remains of living things. He even masters principles like the refraction of light and how friction generates intense heat. The boy understands the science behind injury and how the human body repairs itself. Later, he conducts his own experiment on decay. Seeing the results firsthand absolutely blows his mind. These lessons allow him to drastically improve his skills as a wizard. He speculates that noble houses might be hoarding this knowledge to keep their competitive edge over other wizards. The librarian finally understands why the world's level of knowledge has been declining for so long. Time flies by. 1 month passes, and Tran tells the librarian that it is finally time to move on. The librarian is shocked, but Tran notes that Rug is already pressuring him to leave. Devastated by the news, the librarian desperately lunges toward Tran. He begs to go along, but his ghost-like hand simply passes through Tran's body. Tran asks if he can leave the library, but the answer is a firm no. He promises to protect Tran if he stays, but the young man politely declines the offer. Before departing, he promises to return soon, reminding the librarian that countless books are still waiting to be read. Tran packs his things and officially departs from the city. Using a library map, he discovers that House Zahar's base lies within the Emerald Desert to the east. He decides it's time to head to Zahar and find the truth about his parents. That night, he sets up camp in the woods, refusing to rush since any remaining clues aren't going anywhere. He continues his journey, slaughtering any monsters he finds. The next day, he finds a brave horse defending its fallen master from 2 dark elves. These two are fuming because a freaking horse is giving them this much trouble. To deal with the animal, the elves use necromancy to raise every dead monster nearby. Tran stays hidden, quietly watching the elves perform their dark, twisted ritual. He hesitates, should he actually help this stranger or just stay back? He has no idea if the unconscious guy was the one who started this. The elves start eating the fallen humans while trying to figure out how to kill the horse. Seeing their cannibalism makes Tran snap, so he immediately activates his stealth mode. Moving like a ghost through the shadows, he hurls a stone, decapitating one of the elves in a single, brutal hit. The other elf panics, staring at the headless corpse of his friend. He desperately rallies his undead monsters. Tran attacks again, but a massive bull monster steps in to block him with its head. The beast charges toward the spot where Tran launched his strike. It tears through trees like paper, but Tran is already long gone. Terror sets in for the elf. He knows how deadly stealth users can be. He sends his beasts out, desperate to find where Tran is hiding. Tran is forced out of hiding, and the elf immediately orders the kill. Tran summons a fire attack, incinerating one of the monsters instantly. But before he can recover, the bull charges. Tran barely manages to leap out of the way. He panics. These monsters are way faster than he expected. He's just glad he managed to take out one elf already. Suddenly, a monster bites him from behind, locking its jaws onto his heel. As he struggles to break free, the bull slams into him, sending Tran flying into a tree with bone-breaking force. He coughs up blood, falling to his knees in pure agony. The elf sneers, promising to make him suffer before he finally dies. The horse kicks the elf in the face. The elf begs for help as the monsters swarm the horse instead. They completely ignore Tran, allowing him to launch a final strike that decapitates the elf. With the master dead, the beasts collapse, leaving Tran exhausted on the ground. The horse walks over to check on him, and Tran whispers his thanks. Later that night, the horse's owner wakes up, shocked to see a complete stranger nearby. Tran greets him calmly, but the man demands his identity. Tran explains he saw the dark elves attacking and stepped in. The man pets his horse, revealing her name is actually Tilly. Tran tells him he has a good horse that truly protects its master. The man finally introduces himself as Eyes, from the House of Berg. Tran introduces himself and asks why the dark elves were so hell-bent on killing him. Eyes explains that he was simply on a pilgrimage when the elves suddenly attacked him for no reason. He'd heard other races were just heartless savages. Eyes breaks down in tears, apologizing to Tran for showing such weakness. He lost precious people, making Tran wonder if they were his family. Eyes explains everything. These fallen warriors were the knights and servants accompanying his holy pilgrimage. They basically raised him from childhood. In his eyes, they were his only family. Hearing this, Tran realizes Eyes is actually a decent guy. He asks Eyes about the dark elf ambush, noting that he only took out 2 himself. But Eyes just shrugs it off. He already killed them all. Still, Tran isn't taking any chances with being followed or stalked. He triggers his search skill, scanning the perimeter to ensure no more elves are lurking in the shadows. Eyes wonders if Tran is busy, but it turns out our main character is on a pilgrimage of his own. Eyes can't believe it. Someone this strong on a solo pilgrimage. He asks if Tran comes from some elite noble house. He's curious why Tran is flying solo, but our main character. Well, he claims it is complicated, and insists he is not actually that powerful. He downplays the win, saying he just used an ambush and had Tilly's help to survive the fight. Suddenly, both of them flare their auras to gauge each other's true power. Once the dust settles, Tran is genuinely shocked by the massive amount of mana Eyes is packing inside. In fact, if Tran hadn't just absorbed those dark elves, Eyes would actually have more mana. Now Eyes is convinced Tran is highborn from some legendary bloodline. Plus, Tran clearly hasn't even hit his peak yet. Why on earth is a talent like this traveling alone? Since Tran is just drifting for now, Eyes invites him to come along to the prestigious House of Berg. He promises to reward Tran for saving his life and acting as his personal bodyguard on the way home. Naturally, Tran wants to know what kind of reward. Eyes reveals his family are master enchanters, loyal vassals to the great house Arabian in the north. Basically, they come from a long line of legendary magic tool craftsmen. He promises to craft Tran the absolute best magic gear as a proper thank you. First is the content creation process. After having an idea, I will create an outline for each part. This is the idea, and this is the outline. After checking the outline, checking this outline carefully, I start writing detailed content based on the outline above, so this is my handwritten script. After I based it on that outline, after having the handwritten script once this is done. We put it into a translation website. This is our internal translation website. We designed this website specifically